In the vast pantheon of classic horror films, Dracula's Daughter, released in 1936, stands out as a unique continuation of Bram Stoker's iconic vampire lore. This film introduces Countess Maria Zaleska, Dracula's tormented offspring, grappling with her sinister heritage. Fast forward to the modern day, and we encounter Abigail, a reimagined tale that pivots from the somber shadows of its predecessor to explore new dimensions in horror comedy. This film revisits the daughter of Dracula, infusing her story with contemporary themes and a starkly different tone. Reimagining classic films serves as a creative conduit through which filmmakers can explore modern issues, perspectives, and artistic techniques while paying homage to the narrative and stylistic elements of the originals. In this video, we will compare Dracula's Daughter and Abigail across several dimensions: plot, characters, thematic elements, visual style, and cultural impact, to highlight how each film interprets the legacy of the world's most famous vampire in its own era. Dracula's Daughter picks up directly where the infamous tale of Dracula leaves off, with Countess Maria Zaleska acquiring her father's body with hopes of destroying it to free herself from the vampiric curse. The film explores Maria's internal conflict as she strives to lead a normal life away from the dark legacy of her lineage. Despite her efforts, the Countess is inevitably drawn back into the world of the undead, compelled by her insatiable thirst for human blood. Her tragic quest for redemption and normalcy forms the crux of the narrative, highlighting the psychological torment inherited from her father. On the other hand, Abigail offers a more contemporary and comedic take on the Dracula mythos. Abigail, the protagonist, is aware and somewhat accepting of her vampiric nature, but she rebels against the archaic traditions of her family. Instead of seeking redemption, Abigail's journey is about self-discovery and empowerment, using her abilities to navigate the challenges of the modern world. Her story intertwines horror with humor, creating a narrative that is both lighthearted and dark, reflecting today's multifaceted storytelling styles. Comparatively, both films center on Dracula's daughter, but depict her drastically different. Dracula's Daughter leans into the gothic and tragic aspects of Maria's lineage, focusing on her struggle with her identity and the curse. The plot progression is linear and somber, mirroring the storytelling style of its time. Conversely, Abigail incorporates a non-linear narrative, frequent tonal shifts, and a blend of genres, showcasing a protagonist who, unlike Maria, uses her inherited powers to challenge and change her circumstances rather than escape them. This contrast in narrative structure and plot developments underscores the evolution of filmic storytelling, as well as the shift in societal attitudes towards themes of identity and legacy. Countess Maria Zaleska, the central figure of Dracula's Daughter, embodies the tragic struggle between her inherited vampiric nature and her desperate yearning for a normal human life. Maria is portrayed as a deeply conflicted character, tormented by her father's legacy and her own desires. Her efforts to rid herself of the vampire's curse are marked by both compassion and malice, as she oscillates between seeking help from psychiatry, a novel approach at the time, and succumbing to her need to feed. Her character arc is steeped in gothic tragedy, emphasizing the inescapable pull of her dark lineage, which ultimately leads to her demise, reflecting the fatalistic perspectives of her era. In stark contrast, Abigail, in the new movie Abigail, presents a more empowered and dynamic version of Dracula's progeny. Unlike Maria, Abigail embraces her vampiric traits as a part of her identity, using them to navigate and manipulate the modern world rather than denying them. Her character is witty, resourceful, and unapologetically rebellious, reflecting contemporary values of self-acceptance and empowerment. Abigail's conflicts arise not from an internal struggle with her vampire nature, but from external challenges, including familial expectations and societal norms. Her journey is about leveraging her unique abilities to forge her path, which is infused with both comedic and heroic elements, demonstrating a significant shift in character portrayal from Maria's time. The divergent characterizations of Maria and Abigail highlight the evolution of the Dracula legacy from a curse to be eradicated to a characteristic to be explored and celebrated. Maria's motivations are rooted in escaping her fate, driven by a desire for redemption and normalcy, while Abigail's motivations stem from a desire to redefine her fate on her own terms. This shift not only marks a change in the narrative focus from victimhood to agency, but also mirrors broader societal changes in the perception of identity and autonomy over one's life and legacy. Dracula's Daughter is deeply embedded with themes of identity and legacy, examining the profound burden of heredity. Countess Mara Zaleska struggles with her identity as both a vampire and a woman seeking normalcy in a society that neither understands nor accepts her dual nature. The film portrays her vampire lineage as a curse, one that stifles her personal desires and forces her into a life of solitude and misery. This exploration of legacy as a force of inevitable doom reflects a fatalistic view of identity that suggests we cannot escape our past, and personal transformation is fraught with insurmountable challenges. Contrastingly, Abigail takes on a more modern approach by weaving themes of rebellion, modernity versus tradition, and empowerment through its narrative. Abigail, as a character, represents a new generation that questions and often rejects the outdated norms imposed by older generations. Her vampirism is portrayed not as a curse, but as a unique attribute that she can harness to affect change and challenge the status quo. This film celebrates the breaking of traditional chains and the embracing of one's traits to forge new paths. It champions the idea that legacy does not define one's destiny, but rather provides the tools to redefine it. The thematic contrast between Dracula's Daughter and Abigail are stark. While the former dwells on the inevitability of inherited curses and the tragic consequences of trying to escape one's nature, the latter embraces these inherited traits as sources of strength and platforms for change. Dracula's Daughter treats the vampiric legacy as a metaphor for the struggle against one's darker nature, a battle that is both internal and doomed. On the other hand, Abigail uses vampirism as a metaphor for empowerment and the potential to reshape societal landscapes, reflecting contemporary values that advocate for self-acceptance and the questioning of traditional norms. This shift not only highlights a change in societal attitudes, but also suggests a broader narrative evolution from despair to agency. Dracula's Daughter is emblematic of the 1930s gothic horror aesthetic, characterized by its shadowy, expressionistic cinematography that enhances the film's ominous and foreboding atmosphere. The visual style employs stark lighting, contrasts with deep shadows and sharp highlights, a technique that accentuates the inner turmoil and duality of Countess Maria Zaleska. This chiaroscuro effect not only heightens the suspense and horror elements, but also visually represents the struggle between light and dark, both literally and metaphorically. The gloomy and imposing sets, often adorned with Gothic architecture, further embed the narrative in a world that is both entrancing and eerie, reinforcing the themes of entrapment and fate. In contrast, Abigail adopts a visual style that blends traditional horror elements with vibrant contemporary aesthetics to create a more eclectic and visually dynamic experience. The film uses a color palette that is both richer and more varied, reflecting Abigail's multifaceted personality and the modernized setting of the story. The cinematography is playful and inventive, utilizing modern filming techniques such as handheld shots and quick cuts that lend a sense of immediacy and realism. The lighting in Abigail is less about creating stark contrasts and more about blending shades and tones, which reflects the film's approach to blending genres and themes. The comparison of visual motifs and atmospheric elements between the two films highlights their thematic divergences. While Dracula's Daughter uses visual style to evoke a sense of dread and inevitability, focusing on the oppressive nature of Maria's legacy, Abigail uses its visual elements to emphasize energy, defiance, and empowerment. The use of modern cinematographic techniques in Abigail supports its themes of breaking free from tradition and redefining oneself, whereas the traditional Gothic motifs in Dracula's Daughter underscore the inescapable pull of heritage and doom. This distinct use of visual styles not only sets the tone for each film, but also significantly contributes to how their stories are perceived and experienced by audiences. This comparative analysis of Dracula's Daughter and Abigail highlights how each film interprets the legacy of Dracula's lineage through their distinct narrative and aesthetic choices. While Dracula's Daughter emphasizes the tragic, inescapable curse of vampirism with its Gothic visual style and somber plot, Abigail reinterprets this legacy as a source of empowerment infused with modern sensibilities and vibrant visual palette. The evolution from a narrative of doom to one of empowerment reflects a broader shift in how contemporary cinema revisits and reimagines classic tales. Reimagining classic stories allows filmmakers to explore the relevant social themes and contemporary issues, bridging historical narratives with modern contexts. This not only revitalizes old characters and stories, but also keeps them relevant for new audiences. Both films contribute uniquely to the Dracula mythos, with Dracula's Daughter solidifying the tragic aspects of the vampire tale and Abigail expanding its potential for narrative and thematic exploration in popular culture. Together, they showcase the rich possibilities that arise when classic tales are viewed through the lens of different eras. What do you think about the two movies? Have you seen Dracula's Daughter? Have you watched Abigail yet? Let us know in the comments below.